Please, help me. I have been trapped for, well, God knows how long. All I can remember is walking here. Then, everything went black. My mind felt like I was in the most intense dream imaginable. The colors I witnessed, the shapes I did not think existed. The lines did not conjoin together. Even as I attempted to put the pieces together, to make of something of which I could understand, they dissembled again. A black abyss submerges me as the shapes tear through my body painlessly. Faster and faster, they spin around, detaching themselves into artists' paint strokes. Watercolors, that is what it felt like. Beautiful artistic imagery. Was this really a dream? Is what I said to myself, as I hurtled through the transparent loops leading to a gate guarded by a miniature version of myself. What is? I asked it, and it showed me a mirror. A reflection of myself, wearing a black cloak and no face. Just skin, aged skin. Was this a glimpse into my future? A deteriorating body, soon to be a corpse laying in the ground. Those maggots, sure are hungry. The figure in front of me began to fade out, and I knew I was coming back. Wake up. A voice called to me, and I was dragged to my jail cell. How long am I to spend here? I asked.
We will figure it out. Your talent perplexes us, so your crime remains clear. Understand that we do not do this for our sake. We do it for the sake of everyone.
I was locked up, banged up. It has been a long time. I do not know when I will be let out.
Hello, and welcome my furry friends. This episode is brought to you by the Social Distancing Fairies, keeping you socially distant for your grandparents. On this episode I'm joined by Niklas Akerblad, aka Huervo, musician, painter, video game enthusiast. Perhaps better known for his work on Hotline Miami, the ultra-violent top-down shooter game with a heart-pounding soundtrack. His jaw-dropping artwork for the game gained worldwide attention for its bold 80s visual style, very much inspired by the 2011 film Drive. And who doesn't want some lovely colourful imagery whilst you're bashing someone in with a baseball bat? Whilst we're shacked up in quarantine, why not listen to our conversation? We talk about how to find creativity, music sampling, technology, video games, and hipsters. What is a hipster, I hear you ask? Well, why don't you relax into your hammock, put on your bat ears, and find out. Hello, how are you?
Hello, I'm good. How are you?
Good, wonderful. So glad for you to come on.
Hey, it's all good.
So, where are you currently? Are you in Gothenburg?
No, right now I'm in Gröna Hög.
Okay.
Or Vissnaholmen, more specific, but it's like Gröna Hög is in the middle of the woods.
Right. Is that a specific reason? Are you on holiday or?
Well, my girlfriend, she inherited this farm
Mm.
And with the coronavirus and everything, we decided to like move here and see what it would be like to live here and like take care of
Okay.
everything.
Wow.
So,
Are you enjoying it?
oh yeah, sure, definitely. I mean, I thought it was going to be more not lonely necessarily, but like lacking social input of sorts.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I'm not really missing that at all, to be
Yeah.
honest. But I mean, me and my girlfriend her name is Tina, by the way, are hanging out, and I mean, you can chat with people online and whatever, so it's all good.
Oh yeah. I mean, like that is the beauty of like social distancing now. You have the internet to just entertain you.
Oh yeah, and I mean, before the whole social distancing Corona thing, I mean, I'm kind of an introvert anyway,
Mm.
so now when everyone else is forced introvert almost, it kind of calms me down.
Yeah.
I'm not as stressed out.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got that sense as well. Like it's almost like I've always been introvert as well, and it's just seeing these extroverted people just almost morph into yourself. It's very strange. Like and a lot of them
Yeah,
are struggling as well.
yeah. A lot of people are, and I get that. I mean, people are different, and
Mm.
but I think it's good for some people. You know, they're realizing new sides of themselves within this, like how you can actually cultivate other emotions and ideas when you're having more social downtime. I mean, like
Mm.
being social can almost be like finger fucking your phone or something.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Um, so I want to talk about. Well, I first asked about Gothenburg just because I wanted to ask about just in general, what was it like to grow up there? Was there was it quite easy to be inspired by what was around you?
I mean, it's always when you're a kid and you grow up somewhere and you don't know any better. I guess you kind of just roll with what you have.
Mm.
But I think I was inspired. But it's probably had more to do with uh, my parents being interested in culture and always making sure I had a pen and paper of
Mm.
like good quality when I was a kid, and always like nurturing that sort of creative side somewhat.
Yeah.
And
What
also
do they do?
yeah, they're artist, architect. I
Right.
guess
Okay.
that's an art
Yeah.
form, but
Yeah. No. Absolutely.
so I also grew up pretty in a pretty safe environment. So you
Mm.
know, and we had enough money to delve into culture, like buy a VCR and stuff like that.
Mm.
Not
Mm.
all of my friends had that luxury.
Mm. Were they quite helpful in terms of expressing your creativity?
Yeah, especially my mom. I
Mm.
mean, my dad was more interested in cultivating my. I don't even know what to call it in English, but like he always said that when you grow up, you should be a finance shark. And I thought that sounded cool because shark. When you're a
Yeah.
kid, you want to be a shark. That's cool, or a lion.
Yeah. No. Absolutely. But when
Uh,
you grow up, you start to realize that's not so much fun.
no, it's not for me at all. Totally wrong, Dad.
Yeah. Yeah. So you do a lot of things. You do music, paints, video game art. You've done a few cover designs for vinyls and album artworks.
Yeah.
But what do you feel most happiest doing?
Mm, just doing my own stuff, I think.
Yeah, I mean, understandable.
In in general, when you have the freedom to just do whatever and let your brain come up with all sorts of crazy free associated ideas. I mean, sometimes
Mm,
you get to do that, of course, when you work with people, but
yeah.
sometimes there's a lot of direction going on. Like,
Mm,
someone wants you to sort of carry out their vision, which is hard.
yeah.
Or
I
it
mean,
can be hard.
yeah. Do you feel kind of demotivated when someone almost gives you too many rules and too many things to follow?
I mean, since I'm wired the way I'm wired, I don't like rules.
Mm,
as a general rule, I don't like rules, but also it's a tricky question because I've been talking about this a lot with other friends who are artists, and how you deal with that when someone wants to sort of control what you're doing. And creativity is mostly it's like playing,
Yeah.
or just having fun. And if and playing with rules is usually never much fun. So it can kind of, sometimes it's good to sort of, if you have no idea, if you have the carte blanche anxiety, like H.R. Geiger was talking a lot about, like he was always anxious about starting a new painting, staring onto the blank canvas. I mean, that can help you if someone's like, okay, can you do I don't know, a wolf eating a moose? Okay, then you got somewhere to go. But once they start poking around and like how the vibe or the atmosphere or like the soft values of the work, then it can be kind of difficult, because it's always better if you can use your own spirit, or whatever you want to call it, to create the work, because it's always better if you do it your own way, you know, because then you tap into the magic that creates the really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like the human mind's incredible. Like, but I mean, it depends. Some people work that way. Some people work a better way. You know, some people can just sit in the room and just, you know, meditate and just think of something creative from that. Or they have to go out for walks, or, you know, they have to see somewhere special and then they get inspired by that.
Yeah.
I mean, what would you say works best for you? Are you kind of, do you struggle to find that inspiration sometimes?
I think everyone does. That's kind of like the A1 response, I think. But for me, the idea is to not get anxious about it. Like, someone once told me that whatever you do, it's always going to be shit in, shit out. Like, if you fill yourself with a lot of bullshit, your output is going to be bullshit. So
yeah,
a general idea is to try to stay curious and open to the unexpected. And like, I mean, I almost look at consuming culture as a job almost sometimes. Like, I always try to have a book, or like, you know, think about what movies I want to watch, or listen to music that sort of inspires and stimulates me, and find these little things that inspire me, and then constantly try to interact with these things, so that I have a good bulk of inspiration to draw from whenever I need it.
Yeah. I mean, I've talked to people in the past about how, like, if they've been making an album or like a book or whatever, sometimes they can only read things that are inspired by that during that time. Like, if you're making a funk album, and during that process you can only listen to funk music, because if you listen to hip hop, then your inspirations might be diverted. You might lose that sense. Did you kind of get that at all?
I mean, I totally get it, but I think it's I don't know if derivative is the right word, but obtuse maybe. Like,
yeah.
Generally, like, I think the universe likes novelty, and if you want to do something, like, I try to not think too much in terms of rules and genres. So if I ever were to make a funk album, I think I would want to not listen to funk.
Yeah.
When I was working on it, I would totally, like, maybe 6 months before, listen to only funk, so that I would have like a good foundation of funk in my blood, so to speak.
Yeah.
But when that has been sort of established while working on it, I think having crazy influences would actually be a good thing. So maybe listening to the least funky stuff, for example.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, some of the best music has come from just a mesh of everything within that album, or just not one specific sound, but a mesh of different sounds. So yeah, that made sense completely.
I think that that's how you find the new stuff, like, or new venues, when you look beyond what's established.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't want to do that. I mean, it's perfectly fine if you just want to focus on one thing, of course. And I think it takes a certain kind of personality to want to always constantly be searching or being curious. But yeah, it feels like mostly the masterpieces come out of this sort of expansive discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about the album Van der Veer, sorry.
No worries.
How I've read an interview about how you talked about that album almost being like an album for the fans, or kind of more catered towards what people were telling you what to do.
Yeah.
I mean, do you think that, were you happy with the results for that? Are you kind of quite happy you did that experiment?
Oh yeah. In hindsight, for sure. I'm very proud of it, for sure. But I felt a bit dirty while making it, I think.
Yeah. How do you
know? Because it was so weird with the success of Daisuke from Hotline Miami. I didn't really know how to handle that, because it was weird having more plays on Spotify than most of the bands that I look up to have. So I didn't really, it felt like a weird thing, and I was starting to feel scared of losing that attention.
Yeah.
So I think I decided that instead of running away from that fear, I kind of wanted to meet it head on instead, and try to cater to it, so I would know why I felt that way, and if maybe I could turn it into something positive. And I think I sort of managed to do that. So it was kind of therapy almost, to deal with that emotion of, how am I going to deal with the attention and these different wants that the fans have for me.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's difficult to really know what you're supposed to do. Really, you have to almost listen to your heart, but also try and think of people who actually care about you as well.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like, it's a fine line and peculiar balance to maintain, to take not inspiration, but take advice maybe, and listen to people around you without losing touch with yourself. And the other way around, it can be too, I don't know how to say this in English, but the direct translation would be navel looking.
Navel, I'm not sure.
Like looking into your own navel. Like, if you're too self-absorbed, you might just end up in a place where what you're making is so difficult and obscure that no one will understand what it is you're doing.
I get what you mean. Yeah, I don't think there's an expression for it, but I do know what you mean. Almost like convoluting your brain so much you don't know who to listen to or what to listen to.
But it's more like only listening to yourself in such a manner that what you're trying to do is becoming too obscure for anyone to fathom at all. And creating something like art in any form is a form of expression. And to me, it feels like expression is just the first part of communication. So you actually want people to understand what you're doing. I mean, perhaps not everyone, but at least a couple of people. And then it's important to stay open a bit.
Yeah, I mean, are there people within your circle you trust quite well in terms of sending music to them and getting feedback?
Yeah, and knowing how to deal with that feedback, like, so you don't end up in a place where it's like, oh, but this guy didn't like this and this girl didn't like that, and maybe I should change it, and then you might end up with just something that's totally bland instead.
Yeah.
So it's tricky. It's a lot of mental training involved, I think.
Yeah, there's also a thing about overworking or over listening to your own work as well.
Oh yeah,
You start to like almost lose insanity.
dude. Oh my God. So sometimes I think I can almost reflexively enter a state where I'm listening to my own stuff with someone else's ears and try to stay in that state. Because a lot of the times what you're making, you might open it on a bad day and be like, this is shit. But someone else might really like it. So instead of just jumping onto it and trying to fix it and creating a Frankensteinian monster out of it, take a deep breath and try to sort of position yourself outside of yourself and look at whatever it is you're making with new ears. I mean, it's kind of classic stuff, but it's harder to do than you might imagine. For me, at least.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I think it just takes a lot of patience to be able to, like, because sometimes you want to just release stuff straight away, or kind of, you want to get it done, but you have to say to yourself, I need to give it time and to really think about if it's working or not.
Yeah. The stress can get the worst of you. I mean, but that can also come down to the atmosphere around you, like the room you're sitting in or the vibe outside. Like, we were talking about social distancing and how people are more inclined to stay at home. Perfect time to take that downtime and let yourself not get stressed and work on your creative endeavors. Yeah. Instead of like, come to the bar, have a pint of buds or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are just trying different creative avenues. And a lot of people are just writing books. A lot of people are getting into painting as well. Yeah. Like it's really cool, because I think without that, they wouldn't even think about doing that, I don't think.
Exactly. So maybe that's the positive side. I'm sorry, all the people who died and got sick, but maybe this is the positive outcome from this crisis, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I want to talk about hip hop as well.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, because I get a sense that you're a very big fan. Big Wu-Tang Clan fan, am I right?
Well, I wouldn't say I listen to everything that they've done, but I definitely like the RZA.
His solo stuff, or more he's producing?
Yeah, and also his solo stuff I think is cool. Yeah. And I used to listen to Raekwon a lot, but I think I listened to that kind of hip hop a lot when I was in elementary school, and kind of thought it was cool. I didn't really knew why I liked it, and now when I'm older, I figured, it's a certain kind of sound from that era that's really getting to me. And a lot of the Wu-Tang songs are like, they're just stoned as fuck and they don't really know what they're doing. They're just blah, blah, going for it. There is a certain kind of energy to that too, but I always liked the songs that were a little bit more philosophical and sort of soul-like with the beats.
I mean, Wu-Tang were definitely kind of ahead of their time in terms of, like, I think the first track off Enter the Wu-Tang Clan, when I first heard that was probably the hardest beat I've ever heard, and the hardest rhyme and vocals. It was just so aggressive.
Yeah.
And I never heard anything like that before. But yeah, obviously there's more hip hop other than Wu-Tang Clan. Are you more old school, new school, or do you kind of listen to both? Are you quite impartial?
I try to stay impartial, for sure. But as you said, you like at first being hit by that sort of toughness still stays. I mean, you can still find hip hop tracks that are modern, and you sort of feel it in your gut when it's like, oh yeah, dude, this is really like tough or harsh or whatever. Like you still vibe with that.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely. Like I
try to
don't know if you. Sorry.
No, go. You.
I don't know if you know Denzel Curry. Are you familiar with
Denzel
him?
Curry?
Yeah.
No, never heard
He's
about that.
a rapper who's just emerged in the past maybe 3-4 years. He's got a very similar, that kind of aggressive, raw rapping style that you kind of more see like back in the 90s, maybe early noughties.
Oh yeah.
He's quite revolutionary as well. I don't think it's almost like that. Did you ever get into Rage Against the Machine at all?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, it's almost like that Zach De La Rocha kind of feel, you know, that
Oh yeah.
very angry rapping style.
Oh
You
yeah.
can almost feel the emotion within his rapping.
Yeah. That can be good for certain kinds of days, for sure.
Oh yeah.
When you're frustrated and you don't know what to do with all that energy, listening to someone else's frustration can be really quite an exorcism.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I like that. But I think I got into like the sound more than the rappers eventually. Like there was this, especially DJ Shadow for sure, and a Japanese dude called DJ Crush that did some collaborations with DJ Shadow and stuff like that. Nuyabes, obviously.
Nujabes, yeah.
And
I mean,
yeah.
Is any of them you'd like to collaborate with, or kind of who would you most like to collaborate with?
DJ Crush for sure.
Yeah.
Because he's the most inventive of them, I think. Because like, I even met him once, even in Geneva at the airport in Switzerland, and I totally geeked out, like 14-year-old nerdy. Oh, you're DJ Crush, and he couldn't even speak English, and his translator had to figure out what I was trying to say, and I made a mess of it. But yeah, I would have loved to work with that guy. It would have been cool to just see how he thinks about music, because I feel that he's very he has a very spiritual approach to music, and I like that. And he does all sorts of weird things with hip hop, especially, or like rhythm-based music.
Yeah,
I think that's cool.
Yeah, I think there's a magic within, like, especially how you sample hip hop as well, like that you can sample a beat and you can make it your own very easily. Well, not very easily, but you can make it your own if you really try.
Yeah.
You know, you can just take a simple piano 4-track beat and just, you know, put a beat over it. You can do anything with I think that's why I think hip hop's so magical, because it's kind of based on sampling, like a lot of it.
Yeah. And especially with the emergence of lo-fi hip hop, it's kind of like a friend of mine, Shelby, he said that lo-fi hip hop is the modern day jazz.
Yeah. I can get that, because it's still quite niche, though, isn't it? It's not like it's very big on YouTube and like SoundCloud, but it hasn't quite dipped into mainstream quite yet, I don't think.
I think it's like, for sure, not on the radio, but like in commercials and in shopping malls and stuff like that, I hear it. And I think it's like that kind of music that kind of works to have in the background, sort of like these old chill out albums that all the bars were playing 20 years ago, or Buddha Cafe, stuff like that. So it's niche, but it's something that works in a lot of contexts that gives a mood without people thinking about it too much. But it would never be played on the radio because it doesn't have the, the vocals and whatnots that people crave on the radio.
I think to play on the radio, you need almost some kind of energy, some kind of push.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if it's just like a repetitive, nice beat, then not many people will tune into that much, really.
Which is kind of weird because when a lot of people listen to radio, they don't tune into it so much anyway. It's more like something that's just on in the background anyway. So, and I thought about that yesterday when me and my girlfriend were in the kitchen listening to the radio, and she was really listening to it because she was drawing, and how all of these mainstream and famous artists have so much recognition, but mostly I don't think anyone is really listening to their music. Because it's being played on the radio and it's being played on Spotify and whatever, but people who are listening to it, are they actually really listening to it?
I mean, well, there's a thing as well with like how music is now as well. 'Cause most people listen to music when they're traveling, when they're just either browsing on their phone during listening. Nobody actually just sits down and listens to music.
Except the nerds.
Yeah, like me and you.
Yeah. Because maybe, I'm not going to say that we're better in any way, but maybe we get that there's some sort of mysterious magical power in music, that it can sort of give you feelings and emotions and alleviate you and in various ways if you really listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's some albums I've listened to like 20 times, and each time I listen to them, I always notice something different. I mean, especially like more like Beatles or Beach Boys, like really grand scale stuff. You can really notice the little gimmicks in there every time you re-listen.
That's the best thing when that happens. And I try to do that myself. I'm not sure I always succeed, but that's definitely something I always try to go for when making music.
Yeah.
Adding layers and things in there for like little nuggets for people to find, hopefully. And sometimes you might bury them too deep for anyone to even notice. But it always puts a smile on my face whenever I get like an email, someone asking about a weird detail that I put in a song or whatever.
Yeah. Well, think about weird details. Actually, when I was researching for you, I came across a Reddit post talking about how, I'm trying to remember what song it was, but how there was a track where you were singing on it.
Yeah.
Like, was that kind of spur of the moment, or were you always going to do that?
No, it's spur of the moment, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
I was probably drunk at the time.
It sounds good.
Thanks. I don't like writing lyrics because I think I destroyed my lyric brain when I was a kid listening to too many musicals. So the only lyrics I can write are sort of musical-like, and that kind of gives me a cringe nowadays. But it's fun to sing, so I think it was just a spur of the moment, like just trying to use the voice as an instrument more.
Yeah. I was looking for your tweets as well, and noticed you're a fan of Ennio Morricone.
Oh yeah.
And he died, obviously, didn't he? And there's definitely a sense of that Western guitar within your music as well. Have you ever sampled any of his stuff?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I can kind of tell, but I just thought I'd ask.
Not so much anymore. It was more before I even put any music up on the internet.
Okay, right.
It was almost like during MySpace time. I used to sample him a lot because I bought a CD with like a collection of his song, like Ennio Morricone Western hits or something, 30 songs with various of his themes and songs. There's a lot of stuff in there that's good for sampling. And back
absolutely.
then he wasn't as prominent as he is now. He really resurfaced like 10 years ago. And all of a sudden everyone was like on Ennio Morricone. But nowadays it's a little bit touchy-feely with sampling, because before the whole I don't even know what it's called, but like how the algorithms are listening to music and looking for samples. They're like bots on YouTube that send you a cease and desist if they pick up on stolen tunes even. It gets a bit more touchy-feely to use sampling.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not too familiar about sampling history back when in the 90s or whatever, but I know it was around a lot, like especially in hip hop. I mean, I don't know if there was much legal action back then, or was it very much like you can do what you want?
It was more like Wild West for sure.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
People could do whatever, and even if you got sued, like no one did. There weren't a lot of legal leverage behind it, so it was kind of easy to just drop it. And one rapper, I don't remember his name, but I remember him saying that, like, fuck it, I'm not gonna try to copyright, like, try to license anything, because it's just cheaper for me to deal with the legal costs than try to pay for the license. So fuck it. But nowadays it's much more regulated and weird.
Yeah, I mean, they're very tough on it. Like even the slightest, I think it's 10 seconds you're allowed of like a sample. That's the legal requirement, I think. Anything more than that, then people will click onto you and immediately take down your track.
I think it's even less now, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's even less, because I've gotten cease and desists from like just sampling small snippets, and even from things that I didn't sample. Sometimes it's been just for a melody that I've composed on my own that was obviously a regurgitation of another melody that I've heard somewhere. And all of a sudden YouTube is like sending me an email, this is from the whatever Finnish composer, and like, who's that guy? I don't even, so it can get weird sometimes.
They're very tough. I mean, you were in a bit of a trouble as well with the Silent Hill soundtrack as well with Daisuke.
That was actually fine.
Oh, okay.
Because I had Akira Yamaoka's email.
Right.
And when that sort of surfaced, I just emailed him and said that I was sorry and hoped he would understand. And he was like really short, like, thank you, no problem, sort of.
Okay. Well, I mean, I think that's what's important, as long as you acknowledge the person you sampled and they're okay with it.
Yeah. I mean,
and surely that's all you need.
Of course, like, it can be hard to get a hold of people and like asking them, like, I just want to put a homage to you in my song. And I mean, in a perfect world, I feel like you should be able to do that. Yeah. Because like, if it's out of love, because you like the person's work and you want to sort of elevate and incorporate that into your own stuff, it's almost like humans singing to each other. I think that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But since there's a lot of legal bullshit above all of that, they always think that you want to sort of have a free lunch or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think most people who sample people are or directly hate them, or they it's mostly just paying homage. Like, nobody just steals work from somebody because they hate them. It's mainly because of love.
Exactly. And it's not about the money, mostly. And for a lot of people who just work on the legal side of it, it is about the money. So that's where they are coming from. So it's sort of a clash of interests. But yeah, we'll see what happens.
I'll talk about your artwork as well. So I've noticed something. I don't know if you've been asked this before. I've done a bit of research. I've tried to find the answer, but so don't hate me if it's already been
That's fine.
answered. So with your artwork, you draw faces in quite an interesting way. It's like this. I've read up about how it's almost inspired by Mexico's Day of the Dead. But the faces, they have this kind of robotic twist to it as well.
Mm.
Is there a reason why you've painted them this way?
It's an interesting but a hard question. I think it's sort of because partly it's from anime, the aesthetics of it somewhat, and me failing to to incorporate that properly. But also, like, the human condition is interesting to me, and
right,
like androids and AI, because androids and AI creating an AI or an android would entice recreating the human condition and understanding the human condition, to me at least. And that's sort of an underlying theme that I like, a philosophical theme that I like to just mull over and think about. And then that sort of creeps into the faces, I think, because that's the obvious way to portray a person or an android or whatever you're trying to portray. A lot of the, like the uncanny valley, for example, in video games, how they've been struggling to recreate perfect human emotions, but instead of trying to do that, trying to create a being that is almost human but not really, and trying to figure out what it is to be human, as I am doing myself.
So kind of almost Philip K. Dick inspired in a way.
I mean, I'm not a big fan of Philip K. Dick, definitely his philosophical themes, but I feel like Philip K. Dick is more of a jester.
Yeah.
When it comes to dealing with these things. And I think I'm more of a, I don't know, Dan Simmons kind of guy.
Oh, I'm not too familiar with Dan Simmons.
Have you seen the show called The Terror?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, there's a lot of shows that people told me to watch.
Yeah, for sure. I'm not sure you should watch it, but the book is really good. And he wrote 4 books about AI and androids and consciousness and stuff like that. And I was really inspired by that. And I thought it was cool because he's kind of serious and melodramatic and a little bit pretentious about it.
Yeah. I mean, do you like sci-fi in general, or are you just trying to steer away from that a bit more? Is it more just the emotional side of the characters?
I mean, I like Russian sci-fi a lot. I think I like philosophical sci-fi, not so much the laser guns.
Yeah, of course.
All the tropes, but it's really cool that you can sort of take an idea that is rooted in our reality and attack it from a science fiction perspective, because then you can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about in a different way. Like the Strugatsky brothers from Russia, like they wrote Roadside Picnic that was later inspired the movie Stalker. That Tchaikovsky, famous Russian filmmaker, made a movie of, and they used their science fiction as a political tool, because back then in Russia, like if you wrote anything political and criticized the regime, like you get your dick chopped off or whatever, something.
Yeah, of course.
So, and they had really rigorous what do you call it, like processes that you had to send your work to an institution that would review it and be like, oh, you have to take this away and you have to take this away, and this could be interpreted as anti-regime or whatever. And they just wrote sci-fi while criticizing the regime, so it went through the process without anyone noticing.
It's like the perfect anti-propaganda.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, yeah, well, that's still going on in like places like China as well. So it's quite, I guess it's quite hard to be creative there.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can be inspired by what's around you, but more like actually trying to get out there.
I mean, if it comes to criticizing the regime in China, it feels like they're kind of touchy-feely about it. But I've heard also, though, that like the talking about religion, for example, in China is like super easy. In the States, it can be really hard to talk about religion. Like, this is a long time ago now, but Marilyn Manson, for example, had a lot of issues with the right-wing religious people. And in China, it's like they don't really care about that. Like, if you want to talk about the devil, sure, go ahead.
Yeah. So, what else can we talk about? Or you actually talk about video games. Like, I'm interested to how you're attracted to a video game. Is there something that immediately catches your eye and thinks, I want to work on that?
What do you mean, like with working with video games, or?
As in, like, doing the artwork for video games. Is there something within a story of a video game which immediately catches your eye that makes you want to work on it?
I don't get that many. I don't think I get work with video games that way. I sort of just end up in projects.
Okay.
And been lucky enough to like the projects that I've ended up working on.
So just through friends and...
Yeah, mostly through friends.
Okay. Yeah.
Since I've been in the base for almost 12 years now. It kind of, things happen on its own, almost.
I mean, I've heard there's quite a big creative scene in Gothenburg as well.
Yeah, right? Sure. Yeah, sure. It's kind of weird, actually. It's a small fishing town almost.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of creativity there, which is cool. I mean, we have Image and Form, who did the SteamWorld Dig games, and then obviously Denaton and Erik Sveding, who is fairly famous indie developer, and Soink Games. Like, there's tons of stuff going on, which is pretty cool, I think, for such a small town.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. Are you quite happy there, or does they ever tempt you to move to like the States or anywhere kind of bigger?
Oh, I wouldn't want to move to the States. Yeah. Sorry, but the States, no, thank you. I like Sweden. I've been about a bit. I used to live in Ireland, and I used to live in Cork in Ireland and Paris in France. But I always sort of got homesick and wanted to go back to Sweden. I kind of like Sweden. It's safe but boring, but also the weather is kind of shitty, so it forces you to stay inside. And when the sun is shining too much, like in California or whatever, it's too hot and you just want to go outside and skateboard. And it's hard to get anything done. But if it's raining, you stay inside and you kind of brew a cup of tea and start working on some creative stuff. So the weather kind of helps that way. But now I'm thinking about moving to the woods with my girlfriend, so I'm probably going to do that.
Well, go for
it. I actually had a question for you.
Okay.
If that's cool.
Yeah. Just turning it around.
Yeah, turning it around here. Like the name of your podcast, Um, something about
criminally underrated.
Yeah, criminally underrated.
Yeah.
How did that come about? Like, are you interested in criminally underrated peeps, or is it just something?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I'm always, there's like a big list of people that I've got that I want to come onto the podcast. It's just a bunch of people who I just love, and they just don't get the recognition I don't think they deserve.
Yeah.
And I'm always the kind of person who, if someone asks me, you know, of any underrated artist, I have more answers for that than if someone was to ask me about overrated artists, because overrated artists it's a harder question. But underrated artists, you know, there's so many that have, I mean, they're in their own niches. You know, people love them. They're their own communities, but still, I don't think they're quite where they should be.
Yeah. I think it's it's a loving sentiment and an interesting one. And I mean,
is it?
Personally, I don't really feel like I'm underrated, or I don't even think about it too much. Like having money and a roof over your head while being able to do what you love doing is enough, I feel. And
yeah,
I'm perfectly content there. But I think, like, in terms of the overall market, it would be nice if the mainstream was more interested in the weird stuff and not just regurgitating the same things over and over again. Because it would be more interesting if culture in general was more interested in the underdogs, because then you would have more diversity, maybe.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting how like the weird is less popular than something very bland and something very, you know, very conventional. It's a strange concept to think about. Just how something that's more interesting doesn't pique somebody's eye more.
Why is that? I mean, yeah,
it's
why
strange.
Is that?
I don't know whether it's just like through technology maybe, or just like how we've just adapted ourselves into like just these robotic, you know, slaves in a way, and we just like to consume things which are easy.
Maybe it's because music, let's take music for example. That used to be something the sort of flock or the pack or the group could get together around, you know, the bonfire, and then someone starts drumming, and whoever wants to join in can join in, and then you get a sense of community, and it's very powerful. And now it's just sort of something we're listening to while waiting to die, almost.
Yeah, no, well, like that thing I mentioned, like most people listen to music on the train or, you know, while passing time.
Yeah. Instead of trying to, you know, figure things out about their own emotions, or just as you said before, like the brain, the mind is a fantastic thing. Like, it's so vast and mysterious. And a way to discover your own mind is to get into art or culture. It's like a beacon or a funnel into your own psyche.
Yeah, I mean, there's a thing like we only use 10% of our brain. I think it's something like that.
Yeah.
When we're like sober and we haven't taken any drugs or anything like that, you know.
Yeah.
And that's really interesting, because it's almost like we haven't fully evolved yet.
And maybe art is a way, without using drugs, to sort of try to evolve our minds and maybe get to 12%, hopefully. I don't know. No, but something like that. I mean, discovering new things a lot of my emotional landscape I've discovered through listening to music or playing video games. Like the first time I played Silent Hill, I had no idea I could feel such dread or anxiety.
It's a horrible game to play, but it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's horrible, but also amazing. it opened up a whole new set of emotions for me that I could use in art, for example.
Yeah,
And
I
also
mean,
like deal with my own anxiety. Why do I feel like this? And then I had something, this Silent Hill in this particular example, that could help me figure out a lot of these negative emotions that I was having.
was there something that kind of like when you were a kid, especially maybe that you kind of felt safe doing that escaped you from your own emotions in a way? Like playing Silent Hill or like listening to a specific album, maybe.
Yeah, sure, for sure.
Mm.
I mean, that's a classic, I guess. Listening to someone or something saying or doing something that you feel yourself makes you feel more comfortable. Like you feel less alone or whatever, or you figure things out. It's very, very helpful and cathartic, even.
Mm. Whilst you were talking about Gothenburg, I was also going to ask, because I really love Else Heart Break, the game, which you
Oh, you
did
do?
Yeah, I love that game. It's one of my favorite games ever.
Oh, man.
And the city Dorisburg, I think that's what it's based upon is Gothenburg. It's but as in like what aspects of Gothenburg are in that game? Is it very much true to its core, or is it a lot of exaggeration?
We tried to stay true as much
Yeah.
as we could, for sure. Like, especially with the weather and like the mood of the people living there. It's hard to explain, but it's kind of like it's a bit drab. Like the most social people are the drunkards on the bench in the park. Like, hey man, do you got a beer? Like, you're my friend. And then you have like all the other people who are just, maybe it's the weather that does it, but we tried to capture that mood as best we could. And I think that's why a lot of people stopped playing, because it was too hard for them to get into.
The thing what I love about the game is that I love games where they don't give you directions.
Yeah.
It's very much that game. Like it's very much, you have to explore yourself. You have to find out what's interesting, and there's no like journal or anything like that so if you talk to a character, you have to remember what they said.
Yeah.
It's almost like just your brain trying to think.
Yeah. And sort of like life a little bit.
Yeah.
That was especially with the map was a big thing. Not having like a little pin on the map showing where you were, but more like an actual map. And a lot of the playtesters and a lot of people who played it were like, "Oh, the map sucks." Yeah, I mean, it's how a map works in real life. That's what we wanted to do.
Unless go on, sorry.
Sort of just de-gamify things and get rid of all the goals and the hard mechanics, and sort of go with soft values instead.
Yeah, depends what approach we're going for. Like if you're, that game made before Google Maps was invented? Or
Sorry?
Was that game made before Google Maps?
It was before, I think. Yeah.
I
must
guess
have been.
Yeah, that's kind of true to life as it was back then.
Oh yeah, that's true. Like nowadays we have Google Maps, and then you have the pin. So yeah, obviously, yeah. Old school maps then.
I'm victim to being the kind of person who can't get anywhere without Google Maps anyway.
Oh yeah, me too.
And I think a lot of people, yeah.
Totally evolutionized the brain that way.
Yeah.
It used to be fine, but now it's like, where are we? I don't know.
I remember back then it was fine. I survived.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
I don't know how.
Maybe when the corona is over or whatever, and you travel, try to not use Google Maps. It'll probably take a day or two, but then you'll be back to your old way of doing things. Hopefully, who knows?
That's a good experiment.
Yeah. Or maybe we're just fucked forever. Who knows?
Have you ever thought about writing your own game? Or is that just way too, I don't know, out of the... Yeah.
When you say writing, do you mean like story-wise or coding?
Either. I mean, do you have a story for a game that you really want to get out there?
I mean, right now I'm working on a game with a couple of friends.
Okay.
And the initial idea for it was mine, but then I was approached by a friend called Morten Bryggeman, and he sort of evolved the story, and then we sort of bounced it back and forth, and now I'm sort of in charge of doing the lore, and I find it very interesting. I mean, it's hard. I'm used to talking with images, and using sort of an abstract language, and working with symbols and shapes and colors. And now, like, writing is like totally different. I mean, you can still be abstract and loose, but there has to be sort of consistency and coherence to it. If you want people to feel a certain way, I mean, take Bloodborne, for example. Have you played Bloodborne?
No, I've heard a million things about it, though.
Yeah. I think one of the aspects of that game was the cool aspects was that they managed to do a story that was almost completely hard to understand, and to understand the story almost impossible, but still feeling like you understood what was going on.
Yeah.
And that's very hard, because you could almost argue, do the developers even know what's going on? But if they didn't know what was going on, then it wouldn't feel like you almost knew what was going on. So it's a lot about show and tell if you want to be mysterious, and I like mysteries. You have to sort of know the intricacies of the mystery that you want to convey, but not show too much to the player. So stay mysterious without being too obscure.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Like, that's what I think. I don't know if you ever played the game Fez.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I'm drawn to games like that because they're very. They have their own. Well, it has its own language, doesn't it? It's like it's very mysterious. You know, when you first start playing it, you're not sure what's going on, and it's interesting to be put into a world like that, and just almost like stuck into a maze, and you have to figure things out.
I freaking love Fez for that, definitely. And how they made, or how Phil Fish made his own language. And I'm trying to do something similar with this game that we're making now. And it's tricky, for sure. Yeah. So mad respect.
I mean, are you happy to talk about the game, or is it very secretive?
No, it's fine. I can talk about it, sure.
Yeah, I mean, like, what's the premise of it?
The premise is that you're on board this spaceship, or you wake up on the spaceship and you don't know what's going on, and you try to find a way out of there. And almost like Zelda, Link's Awakening, you realize that there's this demon sleeping aboard the spaceship, and in order to get out of there, you have to find this demon and get rid of it somehow.
Nice. Love it. Is it 2D?
Yeah, 2D.
Okay.
So kind of Metrovania-ish.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it's still Il's Heartbreak exploration vibe, but since I'd already done that in 3D, I wanted to try and do it in 2D instead. Also because I thought it would be less time consuming, but it turned out it's not. It's actually more time consuming.
I mean, you said previously you don't like working in 3D. That's right.
Yeah, but I'm starting to realize that maybe I do like 3D.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, I had a lot of fun making Else Heartbreak.
Yeah.
But maybe I just needed a break from that. But now, and especially with PlayStation VR and that little program called Quill, I think it's called, where you can sort of draw in virtual reality.
Okay. Yeah. I've seen that around. Yeah.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool. It piqued my interest to start sort of building worlds in 3D while being inside the world.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mad stuff what VR is doing right now. Like within, it could be the norm within 5 years' time. We don't know.
Who knows? Maybe. I think it would take some time for our brains to realign a little bit first. Like, I imagine it would be kind of weird to. I mean, sitting in front of a canvas for 10 hours, sure, you can get really woozy afterwards, but imagine being 10 hours inside VR and drawing.
Yeah. Right. You'd almost forget you're not in reality.
Exactly. And especially if you're on drugs at the same time. Whoa.
Yeah. Are you a fan of the Switch at all?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I feel like the Switch is definitely like, I guess, up your alley. That's why I asked. Because it's very much in tune to more indie games, more 2D, retro-ish kind of style.
Yeah. It took a while to get used to it.
Yeah.
But I had a friend who for 2 years, he was like, you got to buy a Switch. Yeah, whatever. I'm playing Destiny 2 on PlayStation 4 now. But eventually I got one, and he loaned me Breath of the Wild.
Yeah.
It kind of sold me. And then I started downloading all sorts of weird indie games. The latest one being La Mulana 2.
I haven't heard that.
It's like super obtuse and weird. Kind of like Spelunky, but mashed up with Castlevania and Fez.
That sounds interesting.
Interesting for sure. It took me 4 hours to just clear the first couple of rooms. So yeah. And also like for ports of older games like Resident Evil 4, that was awesome to play again on the Switch.
Yeah, I mean, they're bringing a lot of games onto there, like even like massive games like Skyrim's on there at the moment.
Yeah, how's that working out? Like, have you tried it?
I've never tried it. I'm not sure how it'd play out though, because I don't think the graphics card could take it. Surely.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the Switch is more, how I see it, designed for graphics which are kind of less realistic and more kind of stylistic in its way.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how realism would work on the Switch.
I mean, not only Skyrim, there's also The Witcher 3 on there. And people say that it's fine. And now also The Outer Worlds, which is a massive RPG. Yeah. But if it works, I guess it works. I hope it doesn't work too well, because just as you said, then it might get rid of the titles that try to go for more aesthetic graphics and who want to be more artistic with it instead of just rendering real life or whatever, or realism.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I was drawn to the Switch in the first place, because it was almost like a platform for them kind of games.
Yeah, for the weirdos.
Yeah, for the weirdos. And if you know, the PlayStation and Xbox start to cross-platform their games onto the Switch, then it might, take over. Well, I don't know actually, because Nintendo's still they're a very humble company still.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they'd allow it in a way.
I mean, they have their vibe, and it's very strongly rooted. So maybe we shouldn't be too scared about it. But and also these things go in waves. For a couple of years, everybody wants brown realism, and then there's a couple of years where everybody wants just weird artistic stuff, and on it goes.
Yeah,
Like Braid, for example, when that came out on Xbox 360, there was it was back in 2008, I think.
Yeah.
Then there was like a couple of years where everyone was just super stoked on weird indie games.
I mean, yeah, that was really low budget, wasn't it? Braid. It was same company from another. It was, I can't remember. Do you remember what the developer it was? Or
Yeah, Jonathan Blow.
Oh yeah, okay, of course.
Indie
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, no, that was the biggest game. Surely he's done.
I think he did something called The Witness,
Right.
a puzzle game of sorts.
Uh-huh.
Never played it. Not a big fan of puzzle games. Are you?
I've never heard of them actually. To be
Okay.
honest, yeah, I'm not very in tune with video games. Maybe to your extent. I'm very much stick to the 5 or 6 video games I play on a loop.
Yeah, okay. I mean, fair enough. I think it's a healthy approach.
Yeah.
You can't just consume one. I mean, you can, but if you want to stay curious, you have to sort of consume various forms of culture, I think. And also that it's something that I feel is a bit of a problem with the game world nowadays.
Yeah.
A lot of people who are into games seem to be only into games, so that's their sole frame of reference.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Like obviously, I mean, I've got music, games, films, everything. I think games is quite a small portion of that, but even still, I'm quite hardcore with it.
How hardcore are you with music then? I wonder.
I'd say mostly like 90%, maybe.
Oh, jeez, that's a lot.
Hats off. I mean, it goes back to that thing where like even I'm victim to listen to music, wherever I go, and being like not in tune with it sometimes, just as a background, in a way.
Yeah.
But I guess that's just more like me just trying to relax, in a sense.
Like with video games?
No, with music.
Or music. Okay, yeah. So it's more relaxation for you.
I mean, mostly, yeah. But I mean, obviously, if a new album comes out, then I will sit down and listen to it.
Yeah, get into it.
Yeah. Okay, first of all, in Hotline Miami, I'm not going to talk about it much. I just want to ask a few questions about it.
Yeah, sure.
There's a character named after you called Beard.
Yeah.
Have you always been a beard person? Is it something you've literally grew since you gained puberty?
I think I started growing a beard when I was 16.
Oh, yeah.
So fairly early on. But then I had a girlfriend at the time that didn't like beards, so she more or less forced me to cut it short.
No.
But that blossomed later. Mostly it's because I'm lazy, to be honest. Like I don't make a huge effort. It's more like it grows like weeds, and I can't be bothered to get up in the morning and shave it off every day. So I just let it grow, and now I kind of like it. Also, I'm gonna be honest. I have a small complex with my chin. I feel like it's a wee bit on the small side.
Okay. So have you ever thought about growing like a little tuft of beard over the chin just to hide it?
Yeah, that's sort of what I'm doing. Makes my face look more manly.
Yeah, I mean, like, because I've got beard as well, and like when occasionally I'll shave it off like every 6 months or so,
Okay.
and when I do, it just makes my face so small. It's just
Yeah.
it looks tiny.
Yeah. The same
But
for
I think
me.
yeah, but I think it's because it's almost your beard is attached to your face, so that's how people see how big your head is.
Yeah. So when you take it off, it's like, it's so small now. What happened? But also, I read somewhere that having a lot of hair on your head makes you more emotionally sensitive.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I do feel a little bit denser when I've cut my hair or shaved my beard.
I mean, I guess it makes you more relaxed in a sense.
Yeah, maybe.
But I mean, it depends on the person, really. I don't think it's a very general thing. Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, like, well, the thing is, most people who have beards, as like a generalization, are kind of very like free, very chill people in a way. You don't get so many uptight people with beards.
Well, I have to say that lately uh, it's been happening more and more with the hipster thing, I would say.
Mm.
But yes, generally, I agree with you that the cliche of the hippie is mostly a bearded person.
Yeah. I mean, what do you think about the hipster kind of trend? Are you kind of put off by that, or are you not
I
bothered?
don't, I don't know what it means even. I mean, being a hipster in the beginning was like, I don't even know what it meant to begin with. Like some people
Mm.
say that it were people who in the 50s who were dancing. Some say that it was black people in the ghettos dressing up in nice clothes because they wanted to sort of uh, look more cultural or refined.
Mm.
And now it's just become this, I don't know, uh, eBay archaeologist, you know, look at my weird hat thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I
It's
think
weird.
it's interesting how you hipster. I mean, I think it used to be kind of against the norm, like that was the original kind of meaning of it. But
Yeah.
now, when you think of the word hipster, you immediately have an image in your head, like it just pops into your head.
I mean, and what pops into your head?
I mean, yeah, like fedora, big beard. Uh,
Self-conscious.
yeah, maybe like
I
a checkered shirt or something. I wear checkered shirts, so I'm kind of just describing myself right now.
Yeah, you're describing me as well right now, actually, except the fedora. Uh,
Yeah.
I do have a hat though, but not a fedora. But yeah,
Mm.
that's the picture I'm getting to, and most of the times it feels like people use hipster as a cursing word almost. Like I've been called
Yeah.
fucking hipster a lot of times.
Really.
Yeah, fucking hipster.
I mean,
Yeah.
do you retaliate, or do you just let it slide?
I don't know. I try to let it slide.
Yeah.
One time I retaliated with, "Do you want to get fucked by a hipster?" Uh, but that's the one time.
That's pretty cool.
Feels unnecessary to just, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's best to like just let them say their insults and just deal with their own emotions.
Yeah. The problem lies with them, not me.
Yeah. So I think I'm going to say that's all. Well, that's all I have to ask, really.
Oh,
Um,
yeah?
yeah. I mean, unless you want to talk about anything else.
No, it's fine. I mean, what time is it? Yeah, 1 hour, 15 minutes. Just feels pretty fair to me. I mean, it's
Okay.
your show, man.
Yeah. I mean, it can be our show. No, it's my show.
Now it can be our show. Hello,
Um,
everyone. Bob Kane.
Bob Kane. Bob Kane. That was in reference to a joke Niklas made before the podcast was recorded. Are there any Bob Kanes in your family? He asked. No, I said, without knowing that he was referring to Bob Kane from Batman, from which I heard Bathman. And we chuckled at the obscurity of this new comic book hero called Bathman. And I hope you enjoyed our conversation. And to leave you with something from the magic of El Huervo, here's a track from his just released album, and it's called The Setup.